Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Euranet Plus Press Club. The EU leaders on Thursday afternoon were discussing the best way out of the current crisis. The president of the European Council, Charles Michel, suggested creating a European Recovery Fund, and this idea was approved in principle. But who will pay for it and how? Meanwhile, the European Commission is working on the revised EU budget for the next 7 years. These are some of the topics that we are going to be discussing in this week's Euranet Plus Press Club, together with my guests, the journalists from various European countries. And together with me, I have Teresa Kuchle from Svenska Dagbladet in Sweden. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon.
I have Pascal Hansens from Agence Europe, a journalist based here in Brussels, originally from France. And I have Balázs Naroy from MTVA in Hungary, from Budapest coming.
Hello, good afternoon.
Well, hello, and my name is Artyom Skonahaus. Pascal, let's begin with you. My first question to you, because you've been following the whole issue of the Marshall Plan or the recovery strategy for Europe quite closely. What do you take out of the results of the last night's European Council?
Well, I would say it's first they found an agreement within 4 hours, so it's quite short in comparison to what we have seen at the very beginning. We all remember that the first Eurogroup was something lasting like 16 hours, a whole night. So we could say it's quite a very good first step, because they agreed on plenty of immediate issues, such as the SURE instrument for unemployment, the ESM, which was quite tricky, and also the EIB help for SMEs. I don't know if it's too technical, but we can come back on that point. But of course, there is no one point, which is the recovery fund. And here we can see that member states just agreed on the very main principles. So maybe we are going back on that point, but let's say that now we have a lot of work to do.
Yes, indeed, there seems to be quite a lot of debate ahead of us. But what does it say to you about the prospects of reaching some sort of a more tangible agreement somewhere, let's say, mid-May or by the end of May?
Exactly. Normally, the Commission should come back with many proposals around mid-May. What we can see is the recovery fund might be at the end of the day, a fund based on loans, which wasn't really of the taste of France or Italy, which preferred grants. Let's see what will come up. But the Commission said already yesterday that this fund would be able to raise something like 1 trillion euros, which is not nothing. And today there is one document which is circulating already within the Brussels bubble, which even talks about 1.5 trillion. So we can expect something big. And regarding the MFF, the financial framework for the next 7 years, the Commission will come back also with new proposals. And one of the big topics I'm following personally is the cohesion policy. And here the Commission will come with new proposals on cohesion policy, with more flexibility for regions and member states to get even more money than what they got until now.
Yes, that's very interesting indeed. We're going now, billions doesn't count anymore. It's trillions, lots of
exactly.
money. Teresa, I would like now to ask you, before this crisis, Sweden was one of the countries that was quite critical towards any idea of raising the EU budget over 1%. And they were saying, no, this is not really possible. We can't do it this way. And obviously the two issues, the recovery fund and the budget, are closely linked. So what's the position of the officials in Stockholm right now on this issue? Are they willing to spend more?
Well, first of all, I'd like to back the tape a little bit. First of all, there was an agreement on a recovery fund, but they didn't say how much, they didn't say how, they didn't say whose money or who's going to control how to spend it. They did come out with an agreement saying we will have money. That's all they said. Now, politically, this is important. I mean, there was a sign to the people out there, like, don't worry, there will be money. And that's all they need to know for now. They don't need to know about, acronyms like MFF or ESM or this and that, because they don't know that. All the public needs to hear is there will be money. And this was, of course, also heard in Sweden, but not how much. And the Swedes agreed yesterday, so they will have to spend money. Now, obviously, the number is really high, but we know how it works. The European Commission always puts a really, really high number. They shoot to the stars, and they know that further down the line, that number is going to go down. Now, will it go down to a level that the Swedish government can accept? Well, that's also part of the game, because if the Commission shoots really high, the Swedes end up still paying more money, but it's still lower than was first said. The Swedish government can say, oh, look at us, we were so good, we lowered the number. I think the Swedes are going to have to pay, because everybody's going to have to pay. Because again, yesterday wasn't about the content, it was about the political message to the citizens. And the Swedes cannot be the odd ones out. Well, then you say, I mean, Sweden is one of the countries that are cheap. If you don't like it, you say cheap. If you like it, you say frugal, responsible. I will call them frugal or cheap, as you wish. But then again, I mean, our economy is going to take a hit as well. And for each government, I think it could actually be a blessing to be able to say, we have a little bit of money coming in from the EU. So I think at the end of the day, they will. I don't think, I mean, the number I heard, Pascal said 1 trillion and then 1.5. I even heard the Commission proposed up to 2-point-something trillion. And that's what I mean. They aim super high, and then they always end up with a compromise. I don't think that the fight is going to be as hard as it has been portrayed. They're just going to agree on the number.
Yes, indeed. The debates on the numbers are quite different also on what has already been raised. There are various estimates, so whether it's 500 billion or whether it's actually already more, and what you count in this numbers and what you don't count. So it's a bit of a creative mathematics, it seems to be.
And don't forget one thing, if I may. It's the figures announced by the Commission. It's not the money that the member states will have to put on the table. It's through a Juncker plans system like. So they will use a leverage. So it means that member states will have to bring a guarantee, and that will be the big topic, quite technical. But the 1.5 trillion is in no way the money that should be put on the table from member states.
Indeed. Now I want to go to Hungary. Balázs, how does it all look from Budapest perspective? Is anyone following these issues closely? What would Hungarian government actually like to receive in terms of support from from Brussels, from the decision makers?
Yes, definitely. There is an overall comment on the outcome of the yesterday's council meeting, which is very, very positive, that there is a compromise on a wide range of the issues. And we have to separate, of course, the MFF and the agreement on that, and of course the other funds which are mobilized now for tackling the crisis, let it be the economic aspect and the pandemic itself, so the healthcare aspect. So when it comes to the MFF, that increasing the budget was always Hungary's ambition, and it was the Hungarian agenda to widen the gap or the member states' contribution to the budget, to the MFF. And when it comes to the other part, what is the amount of money which are mobilized to the member states? Well, there is the Hungarian feeling that, and the main question was that whether is there any additional support for member states or not. And the Hungarian answer was that that there is no additional funds, for example, for Hungary, because these financial supports that a country can use. In the case of Hungary, it was already approved from the cohesion funds. So it is a money which is of course more flexible to use, but not additional funds to help tackle this crisis. So that was the that was the main comment.
I'm also wondering, because the debate is very, very different in different countries, is there any sympathy in Hungary towards the argument of the French and the Italians that there needs to be basically a massive amount of money to save everyone, and there needs to be really a lot of spending, and this is the only way how Europe can get out of this crisis? Is this an argument that is, meeting some sort of sympathy in
Yes, that was a clear sympathy, mainly with Italy in the beginning of the crisis, regarding also the solidarity with Italy, how to help and how to assist Italy in the beginning of the crisis, and when it was very hard and tough hit Italy in March. So that was a clear sympathy, and with that came the support for Italy that, for example, the so-called and often mentioned Corona bonds should be used to help the southern member states of the European Union. And there is another aspect which is often mentioned in Hungary that's also related to the issue which were discussed on the council meeting. That is namely the coordinated exit strategy. So how to lift the measures, the lockdown step by step. And in this, there is a support in Hungary that there should be some kind of cooperation on the European level, and that goes hand in hand with the aspect that there is a really narrow balance between the costs of the pandemic itself in human lives and the costs of the lockdown of economies, which has also very, very serious impacts on economies, and through the economy also to human life, so existences of people, jobs, and it has also direct impact. So that's the argument that there should be a kind of coordination and cooperation between member states in exit strategies.
If I may,
yes, please.
Can I add something to that? I mean, this is exactly what the meeting last night was about, and why it was so short, because they needed to send a quick message, like I said. Right, coordination. The budget, the EU budget, is only 1% of GDP. No country thinks that the EU is going to save us from the costs of repairing the economy. 99% of what we own is still our own responsibility. It's about the loans. We need to get cheaper loans. Italy, Spain, France, Hungary, Sweden, we're all going to have to borrow a lot of money to fill our coffers after the coronavirus has stopped spreading. And that means loans, and we need the interest to be low. That's why this money is not supposed to be money, like Pascal said, it's not supposed to be money, it's supposed to be guarantees for loan. However, I think that also what you just said there, Balázs, with saying that solidarity, from the very beginning, EU countries have been fighting over border closures, over face masks. They've even stolen face masks from each other. People have been bickering. The Portuguese called the Dutch disgusting. The Dutch called the southern countries lazy. I think that the message sent yesterday was like, yes, we're together. Look at us, we're smiling. We agreed, and it took only 3 hours. We are together on this because everybody knows if solidarity that seems to be lacking in the EU, then we feed the populists. Then we feed Matteo Salvini from Lega Nord in Italy to go out and say, why not leave the EU? Then we feed Marine Le Pen in France, who has been fighting to leave the Euro cooperations for years. So I think what you say there, solidarity, is part of the political message. And that's why I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, but I mean, that's why we didn't see a lot of content yesterday. What we saw was a handshake of smiling, happy, cozy, 27 people being good friends and in solidarity with each other.
Yeah, and just a short answer. Yes, that's why it was also in Hungary the first comment when observing it from above, the optimism and the positive message of the council meeting. You mentioned, Teresa, the loans which should be taken by countries. In Hungary, there is a special position on this because in the monetary and fiscal policy, there is a very important point that Hungary does not want to get any loans. Try to avoid, at least try to avoid that. So that will be a question.
Yes, this indeed will be very interesting. I wanted to come to you, Pascal, and ask, since you are French native, what's the this feeling in France? You know, they've been asking for these grand plans, really big ideas coming out of Paris on the different ways to save Europe. Is there any kind of satisfaction coming from the side of
Listen, we are quite hard to get satisfied in France most of the time, but I would say it's definitely in line with Macron's project for the European Union. And we have to see that, in a sense, this coronavirus crisis is an opportunity for the government to put back on the table some proposals in order to, in a way or another, to increase the budget. We all remember the Sorbonne speech of Macron, where he wanted a strong budget for the Euro zone, etc., etc. Well, we can see that through this recovery fund, they are trying to build up something new. Let's see, it's not completely fully in line with what was asking France at the beginning. We prefer, of course, like Italy, like Hungary, if I understood well, grants and not loans, because loans mean that you have to pay back one day or another. So grants, it's even better, but let's sum up it like this. Grants, it's more for the MFF side, and loans would be more for the recovery fund. And now Bruno Le Maire, the finance minister, is, let's say, okay with that. And in a sense, he has been heard yesterday by Ursula von der Leyen, who mentioned 1 trillion and something like loans and grants solution. But the Corona bonds is no more on the table. It's impossible to sell for many countries because, as always, never forget that then the government has to be confronted to the national parliament and to the public opinion.
Yes, indeed, this is always a difficult debate in the different countries, and the forces that are driving the Euroscepticism in different countries are often quite contradictory, and that is another things that we notice in Europe quite a lot. I'm afraid this is all we have time for today. Thanks a lot to my guests for participating in this program. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time at the Euranet Plus Press Club.